Succession starts the moment you take your role. The moment you take your role. And it's hard to do because, wait, I just got here. I don't want to bring somebody in that can replace me. Yes, you do. That's what leaders do, period.
Forget the standard CEO playbook. Oscar Munoz saved United Airlines by getting yelled at by a mechanic at 2 a.m. in a Houston hangar. He broke a 5-year stalemate with unions by asking for a one-on-one personal meeting, which was unheard of at the time. And he shocked the industry by hiring one of his biggest rivals, Scott Kirby, who is now the company's CEO. His methods were unconventional, but the results were undeniable. Peace with unions, peak operational reliability, and a redeveloped first-class experience, and a 54% increase in stock price over his 5-year tenure. How did he do it? Join me for this incredible conversation with Oscar Munoz, the CEO who proves that to lead, sometimes you gotta throw out the business school rulebook. The road to leadership is never a straight line. On this podcast, I'm interviewing the world's most interesting leaders about their mountaintop moments, their stumbling blocks, and everything in between. This is Stumbling Blocks, How Great Leaders Are Made. This is part 2 of my conversation with Oscar. In part 1, if you listened, you heard him detail how he responded to an epic crisis in terms of customer relations and how he says it's never too late to do the right thing. Here's part 2, and we jump right into the moment where Oscar stepped into his role as CEO. Take a listen. I wonder if we can rewind the tape a little bit to when you first arrived at United Airlines. The outgoing CEO has exited, and you're unexpectedly placed in the role as CEO. And I wonder if you can tell us what you discovered when you stepped into that role and what you did about it.
Yeah. To set a broader context,
Yeah.
I'm on the board of directors and had been for a few years. I knew this CEO, obviously, as a board member, and I had known him when he was president before, so I've known him for some time. An incredibly bright, intellectual person. For all of you out there who are very bright, sometimes that can be myopic. When you are smart and you know the solutions and you know what needs to be done, sometimes before others, it's a wonderful attribute. It can also get you into trouble because as smart as you are, 2 heads, 3 heads, 5 heads are better than one. Absolutely, hands down all the time. And the hardest thing about a high level of intellect is just suppress that intellect a little bit to allow other input to come in. And when that input comes in, it will educate your intellect, and there will be, I 100% guarantee, a better collective, engaged, and collaborative next step as a leader. Because you saying, here's what we got to do, go do it, damn it, that'll get done. No question. And if it's the right thing, terrific, take all the credit. Oftentimes, what is it? All good plans that fall apart at the first sign of the enemy. When no one knows what you thought or meant, when that first obstacle comes in, they will have no clue. So I always told really smart, think about this intellectually. Isn't it better to have a plan that, yes, it took a little longer to get out, but at the same time, everybody's kind of engaged and involved. So when stuff happens, they know how to react quickly and the plan continues. So that's a lesson that's really important because we all think we're really smart and don't need others. There may be a few people in the world that feel that are that way. Most of us are not. So I'll admit that. So that was this leader, very smart, intelligent, legal lawyer person who thought, what is that phrase about serving as your own lawyer? Only a fool, acts as his own lawyer. Thought he was beyond the law, and it didn't happen that way. So that's what happened. We've also been in the middle of a merger between United and Continental that has not gone well for a lot of different reasons. When anybody ever says this is a merger of equals, just run away because there's no question. There's got to be one leader. And so, there's always 2 things and 2 things got to become one. And the way we went about that merger was the Continental way was the one that was winning on all fronts because the Continental people were kind of in charge, even though there was a mix of folks. Continental was smaller. United was much bigger. So what worked at Continental and worked well with the people that were there did not necessarily translate. So again, being too smart, too arrogant, too good. I've just advised another firm that's going through a big merger in one of my old industries. I literally said, do not bring that arrogance into this process because that will cause you issues. So when I come into this company, this merger is not going well. We have still 2 candidates. This is 5 years later. 5 or 6 years later, 5.5 years, where we still have a sub United team and a subcontinental team. And they're still, when people meet you, I was Continental or I was United right there. 5 or 6 years later is a long time to not have lost that divide. And it was caused by the way people went around things. So that's the environment that I'm in. I see some of it as a board member. I see our numbers dropping. I see how our customers, being who I am, I talk to people, even though I'm just on the board, and people generally talk to me. And so I know that there's things amiss, but I don't know to the effect. So he gets ousted. Long process that if you want to know, read the book about how to make a decision from a sure thing. I had a job and I was going to be CEO, announced as 6 weeks in my old job. How do you go away from the one in the hand to this crazy, broken, spirits are down? I mean, it was that's a whole journey as well that we could spend a little bit of time on.
Yeah.
So I arrived to your question, and a lot of people telling me what needs to be done. You need to fix this. You need to add that. You need to subtract this. You need to shut this down. Wall Street is looking for something tangible because we're not doing well financially, and for them it's spreadsheet stuff, right? You're gonna cut expenses. You're gonna shut down facilities. You're gonna fire a bunch of people, and then of course the consultants have all sorts of great ideas in their mind. My board has ideas. My employees have great ideas. So everyone has an opinion, and that's wonderful, great. So here's my leadership lesson to all of you. When you're involved in a turnaround or a department or a division, whatever it might be that you're running that is in that state, a bad state, it's just not good. It's a turnaround. People may not want to say it, but it's like, no, we've got to fix a lot of things. The best leadership advice I can give you is it's important to find the right first thing to start working on as a platform for all the other subsequent changes. Everything is broken ostensibly. So what is the one thing that's probably the most critical?
Find the one thing.
Yeah.
The first thing.
So easy. Oh, now Oscar, let me write that down. Then you go to do it. It's like, oh crap, how do I go about doing that? How do you find that out? Because again, getting lots of advice from lots of different people. So I'm asked on a very public quarterly earnings call about this. I know I'm going to be asked again. Somebody prepares this wonderfully worded thing about, creating synergies and all the wonderful buzzwords that are in business that people want to hear from a new CEO. And I'm like, you know what? That again, trust travels at the speed of transparency. And I took an extreme view when asked a long-winded question about what I was going to do next. I said, I don't know yet, but I will. I'm going to take, I was going to say 60 to 90 days, but I could see our stock dropping on the screen.
I mean, in real time on CNBC.
Yeah, he doesn't. Remember the context is like, is this guy fit for this role? Does he really know anything about this industry? All of that's going on in the background. So, but again, back to this genuineness that we talked about before. And again, being honest, it's like, I didn't know yet. I was only in the job a few days. So I decided I'm going to go on a listening tour. I said, I'm going to go find out from the people that have been working here for this previous decade. 8 different CEOs have been in place. We've had that. I said, I'm going to go find out from the people that really understand why this business is running as badly as it does. And this is the people that touch your bags, that check you in, that serve you coffee on board, that fly the airplanes and maintain them. Of course, Wall Street doesn't like anything like that, right? Because that doesn't sound tangible. Sounds like it's going to take a long time. And all they're going to want is more. And that doesn't sound like you're going to cut a bunch of people, which is kind of what they want to hear. So I went on this listening tour, and Wall Street Journal interviewed me about a week in from this thing, and they wanted to know what's going on. And I said, the three Ds, disenfranchised, disillusioned, and disengaged. And of course, the reporter comes back very quickly. It was like, well, you were on the board for all these years. Shouldn't you have known that? And I said, you're absolutely right. I said, that's the difference between being a board member and being online. I'm not responsible for this, and I'm getting deeper into it. Whereas a board member, you can oversee it, you can ask questions, but you're not running this. And so, again, I had to apologize to the rest of my board members a little bit because they are all caught in the same storm. But we should have known more. We should have dug deeper. We should have acted on this thing much more. So that's what I found.
So I want to just jump in there. In your book and in your other interviews, you've talked a bit about the listening tour. And in the consulting work that I do with leaders, sometimes we get into sort of the very specifics of what a listening tour can look like. Can you just give us a couple of those moments in time? There's one that you've mentioned in the past where you were, I think, on a picnic table inside a baggage handling area at O'Hare at 2 a.m. because that's when the baggage handlers were working or something like that.
Yeah, no. So again, somebody, you're right. Go listen to people, listening tour. Then you go to do it. It's like, oh, how do I do that? Well,
Yeah.
again, back to my approach and my style and being genuine, and trust travels at the speed of transparency and all those sorts of phrases. I did it myself. I just went out, no entourage, no cameras. I just went and I wanted to meet people. And the first person I met was wearing a Dallas Cowboy lanyard. And as I was walking by, just to engage in a conversation, because he didn't know who I was. And I said, Cowboys? I hate the Cowboys. So, those are fighting words, right? So he stopped and turned around. He doesn't know who I am, but I introduced myself. And, what happened in the next few minutes was I asked him how long he worked there, about his children, just human interaction that shows that you care about another human being, right? That comes across no matter what. I didn't ask him, hey, I'm here to figure out what's wrong with the company at all. You have to earn that level of trust so they'll be open. So we talked for a few minutes, and then he's like, wait, who are you again? Right. And somewhere, you got to remember, frontline people, they're not reading the press releases from the company every day. They go to work, they do their work, and they go home. That's what they want to do. They want to do it as well as possible. Just let me do this. And so we engage in a conversation. And so that's how this whole thing starts. Now, people will say, well, Oscar, you had 140,000 employees. You can't do that with every single one. You don't have to. So guess what this guy did, which is funny, he left me, right? When he goes to work back to his group, and what is it? You guys are never going to guess what just happened. I just ran to this guy, right? And the story is going to be a positive one. It's going to be one of engagement. He seems like a nice guy. He asked me about my family. And then at the end, it's like, what are things that we can fix? Your memory of the book. And so this is much larger scale. It was what we call tech ops. It's the people that maintain the aircraft. And they do work at night because obviously planes are flying during the day mostly. So we do a lot of repair and maintenance that's done overnight. So you have, this was in Houston, and we call them there are hangars where they do all this work. And there's usually 400 or 500 people that are working all night long. So I go to dinner with some management, then I go and about, 1:00 in the morning, I show up right about when their break is about to happen for lunch, and get into this big, large hangar. Imagine 500 people who repair aircraft for a living. Now, I worked in the railroad industry, and the railroads, the same repair persons, we always had a joke about them. They could fix anything. Give me a hammer and a blowtorch, and I'll fix the damn thing, right? We are a little bit more delicate with aircraft, but the essence is the same thing. So these aren't people that are going to want to hear strategic insights and words of this nature. It's like they just want to figure out who you are. So I get up and I have this really crappy microphone system in this big room, and I'm 5'10". I'm not going to tower over all these very large humans, actually. So I drop the mic literally, and I jump up on a picnic table so that everybody's surrounded me. And I start, I'm yelling at the top of my voice to be heard.
Yeah.
And people are angry. These are the kind of people that there is no filter. They want their benefits, they want their pay, they want work hours, they want, all the things that they want. And so they want blood. It's like, you need to fire this person. Because my question that I'm asking is, what do you think we need to fix in this company? And one particular person who is the biggest and most vocal, is just right in front, just no matter what I say, and he screams, we've heard all this crap before, different word. We've heard all this before. And I stop, and he did it loud enough. He was clearly leading the group in the emotion.
Because as a quick reminder, you're the 8th CEO in 10 years. So they've seen this rodeo. Yeah.
Again, that is my understanding, right? It's like, I know these people, their emotions are well-founded.
Yeah.
But it's getting to a point where it's getting, so I stop and I look and I said, and I come down to him, and he's towering over me. And I said, is that true? Someone like me who runs this entire corporation has been here at now 2:30 in the morning, asking you what you think needs to be fixed. And I'm not looking to fire everyone, because that doesn't work. I'm looking for meaningful. And he backs down.
Yes.
And then everybody around him. And then we have a really, involved conversation where people are saying, hey, and it got loud and emotional. But again, it's those moments of connectivity and genuineness and genuine outreach. I really want to know what they have. And so that carried big time because now I got 500 people in the room that just saw this versus one.
Nice.
So this carries throughout the entire company. So there's no visit I can have anywhere without stopping and talking to people. So now it's expected. Great, right? A lot of task on me, but you know, uh, it had to be done. And so I think one of the most important things about all of this is that at the end of the day, you'll ask, what came out of this?
Yeah.
What was the sense? What was the direction you took? And so a lot of things happened between this conversation we're just talking about, more listening tours. I got sick for a while, and it's just all sorts of things that had to happen. I had to come back. But at the end of the day, I had to report back to the world. Okay, smarty pants, you've been off gallivanting around and taking a medical holiday. Like, you still run a company, either quit because you got these proxy guys that want to bring somebody else in, or you got some great idea. So the great idea, after much deliberation with my team in an offsite where I knew what needed to be fixed. I had a good sense from all this listening tour. One flight attendant just broke down and said, I just hate always, always having to say, I'm sorry. And
Mm,
if you're a flight attendant and the plane is late, she has nothing to do with it. She has nothing to say. If your coffee sucks, she has no choice in that. So I knew we needed to make it right for our employees first, but I needed to convince everyone else. So the punchline to all of this, what I eventually said to the street was, we need to regain the trust of our employees before
yeah.
we can do anything else. Stock price again dropped that day because it's like, what does that mean, right? But we rebuilt our union engagements. We did the right things that the people were behind, and our business really went. And our $40 stock price went to over 100. We created customer service metrics that were off the charts. We weathered storms like Dr. Dow in a big way. The company responded. Our operating metrics for 3 months after that incident were top in the nation. That's how much they rallied behind,
Wow.
we're not going to let anyone do this to United or to
Yeah.
Oscar for whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But you really got, that discretionary effort of all these many
And from a
employees.
financial perspective, this is, of course, pre-COVID. Warren Buffett became one of your biggest investors, which is a no small badge of honor.
I mean, God, there's so many different stories. We announced a growth plan that, again, the street received very badly because they thought we couldn't do it. A 3-year plan that we delivered on in 2 years, and that was at the end of 2019. And we are just about to launch our next 3-year plan, which is going to be even grander, which now people were going to believe. Our stock is hovering at double, at least what I started, because we're doing the things that we said. I've hired a new team, lots of stories behind that. My eventual successor that I brought on from somewhere else,
Yeah.
another leadership ideal. Succession starts the moment you take your role. The moment you take your role. And it's hard to do because, wait, I just got here. I don't want to bring somebody in that can replace me. Yes, you do. That's what leaders do, period.
Yeah.
That's firm opinion that I have. And so, we ended up doing all the right things, capturing employees and doing a lot of things in the process.
You've just mentioned that you brought on an executive from a competitor, Scott Kirby, now CEO. You brought him on from American Airlines. Can you tell us about that, which was quite unusual at the time to bring in a competitor? Can you tell us about that decision process and the succession plan that you had in the back of your mind as you made that decision?
So, in the midst of the listening tour and all this other things they were doing of regaining the trust of our employees, well, quietly working the business side, right, strategically,
Sure.
United has always ballyhooed as the best global footprint of any airline in the world. I mean, its reach is broad, but it was a very complicated puzzle to solve. And if anybody ever solved that puzzle, it would be great. Now, I did not have 25 years of experience in this business. So I knew that I needed a number two that was going to bring a lot of that expertise in the industry to solve this unsolvable puzzle. And so went looking around for various people, talked to a lot of people in the industry. Eventually the issue with Scott came up. He was respected for his intellect, but people didn't like him. Unions didn't like him, employees didn't like him, and he was hard to work with, all those kinds of things. But again, one thing I learned about really smart people, they can come across in a way that people will see as arrogance or aloof or an asshole, for lack of a better term. A lot of times, some of those projections that people interpret are not a matter of character for the individual, but
Yeah.
just as intellect. I mean, when you find somebody, it's like, again, I don't purport to be that smart where it's like a big complicated issue comes up. I know the answer. Like, I don't know why I'm waiting for all of you to catch up to me. I got it. Let's go. That can come across very dismissive. And again,
Yeah.
back to this issue involving other people, and that's how good leaders get back. So spending a lot of time with Scott, I quickly figured out that his peccadillos, if you will, were not driven by his who he is. It was by it's that intelligence. Just his
Mm,
brain just worked in a certain way. So it was intellect. It wasn't an issue of character. So bringing him on, he's just like, if somebody can solve this unsolvable puzzle, it's someone like him. And I'm going to have plenty of time with him to work on this collaborative, human centric thing that we're building. And more importantly, to create continuity, even though he and I are very different, that the world it's not going to see eight CEOs. So it was 2015. It's now 2025. It's been 10 years and we've only had two CEOs. So I'm winning on that front. And I think Scott will have another, whatever time frame he has, but he is absolutely grooming two or three people to succeed him. So the next
sure.
CEO of that company will be somebody from internally. So that's the Scott conversation, and he's doing amazing. The business is going well. He continues to grow on the same things that or build on things that we work together.
I want to go back to the thing that you said at the beginning, that when you thought about bringing him on, which was a leader's job is to think about succession from their first day in role.
Yeah. No. And again, in assessing a situation, so the business side of you, right? This place is broken. We got to fix it. We got to grow revenue. Got all the things that you have to do as in a business. And how are we going to grow in a business that's very difficult and it's so competitive in this unsolvable puzzle? Well, we are underutilizing a lot of our things. And I had a lot of consultants telling me all of these things, but none of them make sense.
Mm,
It wasn't actionable. It
yeah,
sounded good. Hey, you should grow your revenue by growing your. It's like, okay, how does one do that in a competitive space? And I've worked in a lot of industries to understand how to do some of that, but finding the right person to help me with that while we also fix the culture in the company. Remember, it was multiple fronts that we were fighting.
yeah.
So acknowledgement that I need help. B, finding the right person is going to require something for me to give. And finding Scott was just, I mean, trying to getting him away from his other company and all that. Was just I always tell that I'm never going to tell that story. I'm going to let him tell that story when he writes his book about how
Fair
all
enough.
that happened.
Fair
But
enough. We'll have him on the podcast
yeah,
in 7 or 10 years when he's stepped away. So I want to go to flight attendants, and you've mentioned them just briefly. When you stepped into your role, your largest union of flight attendants had an unresolved contract negotiation with United that had been drawing on for more than 4 years, 5 years, I think. And it was headed by a woman named Sarah Nelson. And I wonder if you can just tell us about how you handled those negotiations and especially the personal touch that you took with Sarah.
yeah. So you've heard a lot, all of you, from me already, and just my general approach to issues. Contentious arguments are best solved by sheer just facts. In union negotiations, if you're involved, one side always feels they take one thing and the dry. Oh, did you know that executives are making $100 million or something? And then they get all excited about that, and it's like, would it change your emotion if I told you that was so far from the truth? It's not even funny, right? And so facts can bring opposing, negative, contentious debate to a side. It's like, let's first agree. I'm like, well, I'm angry because I heard you said this. I did not say that. I'm angry because the number is supposed to be here and it's here, right? Like, that's also not true. So anytime you can bring facts into the matter, and that tends to take a little bit of the emotion. After 5 years of very contentious, not even negotiation, it was just my predecessor just thought that the unions were subhuman. It's just his approach to them. It's just, they're not smart. They just work for us. They should just do what they're told. They are plenty smart. They do the base work of creating our customer. We're the friendly skies, for God's sake, right? That's our brand. So I had a different approach to the humans. And you've heard me talk about the listening tour and everything. It's particularly contentious with the flight attendants because they've gone the longest. Now, to put it in context, not having a union contract for that many years means you haven't gotten a pay increase for 5 years, while the rest of your peers in the industry have. So just put it that way.
Yeah.
You're not getting a paycheck that you should. I don't care who you are, a week, a month, maybe 6 months, a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, you are beyond pissed.
5 years with no paid pay raise is no joke.
Now, you're getting paid, but at an old rate. So again,
Right,
it's
right.
not,
Old rates. Yeah.
yeah. Um, And so I have really good conversations with the pilots, and I made my bones with them in one meeting. But the flight attendants aren't budging, and this person, Sarah Nelson, who you mentioned, who has become a friend over the years, very talented human being, and incredibly intelligent and articulate. So I'm this person representing these poor flight attendants who haven't had a pay increase in 5 years, while these guys in their ivory tower, there's been 3 CEOs in place, and they're making these multi-million dollar packages, and yet they can't pay us poor little people. She was very effective at doing that on TV. So again, very as you by now know, my conversation with the pilots, the head of the pilots union says, you really should spend time with Sarah privately.
Mhm,
Happy to do that, I say.
mhm,
She won't, but I'm not getting anywhere near him. I don't trust them. It's going to be one of those. So he helps me set up a meeting with her when we're
mm,
going to meet. So we do it. And when she first walked in my office of all places, I offered to go literally anywhere, her office for that matter. I don't want you in my office. I don't want you anywhere near our people. It was that kind of emotion. And again, rightly
unbelievable.
so. Just like the people that watch the video of Dr. Dow, right? I mean, it's just human nature to believe those things or feel those emotions. So she does come to my office and we sit down and, I'm not an expert on body language. It was pretty obvious what
Mhm,
her level of contentness was about being in the room on this meeting. So I don't know what I'm going to say or do. I just want to get to know her and just understand and see if there's a bridge there that we can begin to build. And I've now been very successful in building with a lot of people in the company. So I'm putting on, it's not charm or charisma or anything. It's that genuineness. It's a new word that I'm using now since you've asked me. My first question to her, because it's very, very cold in the room.
yeah, I'm sure icy, it's gotta be sort of,
Yeah,
icy,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. It's Siberia. um, And so I asked, again, I don't know where this comes from, but I just asked her, I said, so, Sarah, gosh, you've had a wonderful career. How does someone who started out as a flight attendant, as a young flight attendant, get all the way to represent the union that
Mm,
represents all the flight attendants in the country? It's like, that's a fabulous story. How did you get down this journey? And she's
mhm,
like, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Right. That's like, I said, no, no, no. I really, it's important to me to understand how you got to this place and what you did. Cause clearly, you've been very effective and I want to respect that. She went on to tell a story that I'll be brief here just for time's sake, how when she was a young flight attendants have a really hard job because they get moved around all over the country. They're not making a lot of money. They don't have a regular gig. So they go into cash deficit a lot. And it can get I mean, you're stuck in a city. You don't know when your next job is. There's no way to get home. You don't even know where you're going to stay that night sometimes. So it's those early years are difficult for them. So she tells the story to me about when she was that young flight attendant, was in that situation, no money in her bank account, some stranded city, doesn't know when she's going to get, and she gets emotional. And as she's
mhm,
sort of, crying in the corner, somebody taps her on the shoulder and says, "What's wrong?" And she tells the story. And she goes, and this woman pulls out her purse, pulls out her check, writes her a $500 check, said, "Hi, this like, I know you'll pay me back,"
mhm,
and then gives her her card. She happened to be the local union leader for that station for flight attendants. So when you
unbelievable.
hear that story about why Sarah does what she does, why she's protecting that person that she was and that collective security blanket and support that she was given by the union, right? That's a human story. This is not a telegenic, articulate person that likes to hear herself on TV and
Mhm,
is just doing this to sort of advance her careers. This is something very personal to her.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I don't know about you or anyone, I can work with someone like that.
yeah,
And just that conversation alone. And she's in my room and she's in tears and I'm holding her hand and and we ended up hugging and shaking hands. And I said, "We're going to get this contract done." I said, let's keep going through the process, but get to a point where you think it's impassable and call me. I'm going to tell my team the same thing. Keep negotiating, but we're not going more than a couple more months with this thing. Let's figure out loose ends. And sure enough, 2.5 months later, we did have one last sticking point. She did call me. I was in California and it was 3 o'clock in the morning for me out there. And they were stuck on a number that sounds a lot, 40 million, but this is a multi-billion dollar contract and it was getting testy. And I said, "I don't even know what the issue is. I'll get it taken care of." I called my team. I said, "Make it go away." It wasn't giving up 40. People get to go, oh, you gave up 40 million. No, these are all computations that if you do this times this many days on this, you can get up to this number. It's kind of like when people discount things, right? Used to be $100, but today for you, we can give it to you for 70. The cost is 20 and they're making a ton. And so we were able to solve that. And again, back to this phrase I use called proof, not promise. And people kind of accuse you of making up these stories that really happened. Well, you can certainly ask her, or you can see on the back of my book, one of the first acknowledgments is from her, and her words specifically are Oscar Munoz saved United Airlines, period. And then she goes on to say a couple of other things, but that's the level of connections.
I should note here that when Oscar announced that he was resigning as CEO and moving on to become chairman of United Airlines, Sarah Nelson wrote on then Twitter, now X, Oscar Munoz fought against all odds to rescue United from being torn apart and return it to its premier status in the industry. My union and I fought with him to make sure he could do his job, and he did. Thank you, Oscar. Like kind, when you were CEO, you posted a blog post about her.
Sure.
Which was also fairly remarkable, and I would imagine.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be fighting with each other, right?
Right. And Oscar, I just want to put a fine point on that, just on that business results. So 5 years of contentious, you said not even negotiation, just contention. And you, after meeting with her, got to contract in 2.5 months. Did I hear that right? Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Oscar, thank you so much for your time. I wonder if you have any sort of closing thoughts as we head into the new year, head into 2026.
I applaud you for taking on this project, and for all your listeners, stuff happens, and it happens a lot. How you prepare for that, how you manage through that. I mean, I've given you some tips that hopefully are helpful to you. I always say, know thyself. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, no. Really know yourself, the real person that we tried to hide from others, right? We all have this facade in front of us that we want to project calm and intellect and leadership and capabilities. All that's wonderful. But in our heart of hearts, we know that we can be petty and greedy. We're not always as smart as we think we are. We always try to pretend, all those sorts of things. As someone of my advanced career stage, you learn that is just, it's wasted energy. People love you regardless. The people that truly know you love you regardless of how you pretend to be with others. So why pretend with others? Let everybody know who you are, and the comfort and ease and trust from this genuineness that develops is incredible. How people will work for you. And, you give them credit. Sure, they're smart. You say they're smarter. Yeah, you know what? He's twice as smart as I. People enjoy working with someone like that, and it makes your life a lot easier. And the last thing I'll say, for all of you that face constant issues, we tend to blame others to some degree. My boss, my worker. In all those situations, I ask you to do one simple mathematical equation. In every issue that has never gone your way, what is the one common denominator in every one of those situations? That would be you.
Me.
And that's a very telling thing that just says, at some point in time, you start realizing, maybe there's something I need to be done. So know yourself, find somebody that'll help you truly figure out the things that you do and do well and the things you don't do well. And then go work that and be honest about it and quit pretending, because it's wasted energy. So good luck in this journey that we call our careers. And remember the people that brought you up, and always, always, always pay it forward.
Amazing, Oscar. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Talk to you.
I've learned so much from Oscar, and I suspect that you have too. Everything from the way that he chose to hire a rival to what it was like to step into the role of CEO from the board of directors, to negotiating with unions, to his great advice at the very end that the common denominator with all of the problems I have in my life is me. I hope you'll join me next week for my conversation with another airline executive, this time from United rival Southwest Airlines, who was with the airline through COVID, through its operational meltdown in Winter Storm Elliott, and then through the challenges it faced with activist investors and the board of directors from Elliott Capital Management. I'll see you next week on Stumbling Blocks, How Great Leaders Are Made.